In the vast, uncharted reaches of the galaxy, where stars whispered secrets to those bold enough to listen, Jake Harlan, a rugged Terran explorer from the fringes of Earth's colonies, found himself thrust into a mission that would redefine everything he knew about desire, danger, and destiny. The planet Zenthara loomed before him like a jewel suspended in the void, its swirling atmospheres a mesmerizing blend of emerald greens and sapphire blues, hiding ancient ruins and untold treasures beneath its stormy skies. Jake's ship, the Vanguard, sliced through the cosmic haze, engines humming with the raw power of human ingenuity. He was no stranger to the unknown. Years of charting hostile worlds had honed his instincts, turning him into a legend among the Terran fleets, but nothing could have prepared him for Elara, the alien princess whose very presence would ignite a fire in his soul. Jake adjusted the straps of his Envira suit, the fabric clinging to his broad shoulders as he prepared for descent. His journal, a worn leather-bound relic from old Earth, tucked securely in his pack, held his innermost thought sketches of alien landscapes, notes on bizarre creatures, and lately, confessions that burned with a passion he couldn't quite suppress. Another day in the stars, he muttered to himself, his voice echoing in the cockpit. The Vanguard shuddered as it pierced Zenthara's atmosphere, turbulence rattling the hull like an impatient lover. Alarms blared briefly, but Jake silenced them with a flick of his wrist, his hazel eyes fixed on the landing coordinates. This wasn't just any exploration. Rumors of a royal artifact on Zenthara had drawn him here, a relic said to hold the key to interstellar alliances or cataclysmic wars. As the ship touched down on a crystalline plateau, Jake stepped out into the alien air, a crisp breeze carrying scents of exotic flora that made his head spin. The gravity was lighter here, making each step feel like a leap, and the twin suns cast elongated shadows across the landscape. He scanned the horizon, his scanner beeping softly in his earpiece. That's when he saw it, a sleek, opulent vessel perched nearby, its hull gleaming with iridescent alloys that shifted colors like a living entity. It bore the insignia of the Zentharian royalty, a swirling emblem of stars and thorns. Well, that's not on the map, Jake chuckled, his curiosity piqued. He approached cautiously, his boots crunching on the glassy ground, unaware that fate was about to entwine him with a being from another world. Inside the royal ship, Elara paced the ornate corridors, her white hair cascading like silken moonlight over her shoulders. Her skin, pale as fresh snow under Earth's winter skies, glowed faintly with an inner luminescence, a trait of her people that marked her as nobility. Small, pointed ears peeked through her tresses, delicate and elf-like, twitching at the slightest sound. She wore a gown of flowing silver fabric, clinging to her curvaceous form in ways that accentuated every graceful movement. High slits, revealing toned legs, a low neckline that hinted at the allure beneath. As Princess of Zenthara, heir to the throne of Orales, she was no fragile flower. Her people revered her for her wisdom and strength, but in private moments, she yearned for something more than the cold protocols of court life. A soft chime alerted her to an intruder alert. Peering through the viewport, Elara's violet eyes widened at the sight of the human, tall, muscular, with a jawline chiseled by hardship and a smirk that suggested he feared nothing. Humans were legends in her world, tales of barbaric warriors who conquered stars with sheer will. A Terran, she whispered, her heart quickening. Intrigued, she activated the ship's cloaking field, but in her haste, she didn't notice the small object that tumbled from Jake's pack as he inspected the exterior. A journal, pages fluttering open in the wind. Jake cursed under his breath as he realized his loss, but the encroaching storm forced him to seek shelter. He ducked into a nearby cavern, oblivious to the eyes watching him. Elara, driven by a mix of caution and fascination, retrieved the journal under the cover of her ship's drones. Back in her quarters, she held the artifact in her hands, its leather warm against her cool skin. "What secrets do you hold, human?" she murmured, flipping through the pages. Sketches of Zenthara's flora caught her eye first, then notes on survival tactics. But as she delved deeper, her cheeks flushed a deep lavender, the color of embarrassment in her species. There, in bold, handwritten script, were descriptions that made her pulse race. "Saw the princess today, Elara, they call her. Gods, her figure is something out of a dream. That ass curved like the arcs of a nebula, swaying with every step. It's distracting as hell during a recon, one wrong move and I'm space dust. But damn, if it isn't the most perfect thing in the galaxy. Makes a man forget the wars back home. Elara's breath hitched, her fingers tracing the words. No one in her court spoke so bluntly. Zentharian courtship was veiled in poetry and ritual. Yet this human's raw honesty stirred something primal within her, a heat that spread from her core. She slammed the journal shut, but the damage was done. The storm raged outside, mirroring the turmoil in her mind. Who was this Jake Harlan? And why did his forbidden words make her feel so alive? Little did she know, their paths were about to collide in ways that would shake the foundations of her kingdom. As the winds howled, Jake emerged from the cavern, determined to retrieve his ship. But the royal vessel had vanished, or so he thought. A holographic projection shimmered before him, revealing Elara's form, life-sized and ethereal. "Terran," she said, her voice like a melody carried on solar winds, "you have trespassed on sacred ground, and you have left something behind." In her hand she held the journal, open to that incriminating page. Jake froze, his face turning a shade redder under his stubble. "Princess," he replied, trying to keep his cool, "that's personal. Hand it over, and we'll call it even." But Elara's eyes sparkled with mischief, her blush still lingering. "Personal? You dare describe me so vividly. Explain yourself, human, or face the consequences." What followed was a tense standoff under the alien skies, where words became weapons and glances ignited sparks. Jake, ever the charmer, leaned in with a grin. "All right, Your Highness. On Earth we call it admiration. You're stunning, strong, graceful, with curves that could launch a fleet. It's not disrespect, it's truth." Elara's laughter echoed, surprising even her. For the first time she felt seen, not as a ruler, but as a woman. But their banter was cut short by a distant rumble, not thunder, but the engines of rebel ships descending. Whispers of a coup had plagued Auralis for months, traitors seeking to overthrow the throne. Elara's face hardened. "They come for me. For the artifact." Jake's instincts kicked in, he grabbed her hand, pulling her toward cover. "Then let's give them a Terran welcome. I'm not letting some space punks ruin our chat." Together, they raced across the plateau, the journal forgotten in the heat of pursuit. Laser fire scorched the ground behind them, but Jake's quick thinking, rigging a makeshift EMP from his scanner, disabled the lead pursuer. Elara watched in awe as this human, with no advanced tech like hers, turned the tide with sheer grit. "You fight like a demon," she gasped, her body pressed close to his in hiding. "And you move like a goddess," he shot back, their breaths mingling. In that moment, amid the chaos, a bond formed, fragile, electric, unbreakable. As the rebels regrouped, Elara activated her ship's distress beacon, but it was Jake who devised the plan: infiltrate the ruins, retrieve the artifact, and turn it against the usurpers. Hours blurred into a whirlwind of evasion and alliance building. They shared stories under the cover of night, Elara confessing the loneliness of her royal life, Jake revealing the scars of lost comrades. His journal entries, once a source of embarrassment, became a bridge, each word drawing them closer. By dawn, they reached the ancient temple, its walls etched with prophecies of unity between worlds. But the rebels were waiting, their leader a disgraced noble with eyes like voids sneering at the pair. A human toy for the princess? How fitting for her downfall. The battle erupted in a symphony of energy blasts and primal roars. Jake, unarmed but unyielding, dodged beams with acrobatic precision, using the environment to his advantage, toppling crystalline pillars that crushed foes, hacking into rebel comms with his wrist device. Elara wielded her royal scepter, channeling ethereal energies that deflected attacks, her gown tearing in the fray to reveal more of her alluring form, which only fueled Jake's protective fury. In the heart of the melee, Jake took a glancing hit, pain searing his side, but he pressed on, shielding Elara as she activated the artifact, a glowing orb that pulsed with cosmic power. "For Auralis," she cried, unleashing a wave that neutralized the rebels' weapons. Jake finished the job, tackling the leader in a brutal hand-to-hand that showcased human resilience, fists flying, blood mixing with alien ichor. Victorious but weary, they stood amid the ruins, the orb's light bathing them in warmth. Elara tended Jake's wound, her fingers gentle on his skin. "You saved me, Terran. No Zentharian could match your fire." Jake pulled her close, their lips inches apart. "And you saved me from a boring life." That journal. It was fate's way of saying hello. As the suns rose, their alliance blossomed into something deeper, a promise of adventures yet to come. but shadows lingered, whispers of greater threats beyond Zenthara's borders, where empires clashed and loves like theirs could spark wars or forge peace. Yet for now, in each other's arms, the galaxy felt conquerable. The warmth of Zenthara's twin suns bathed their entwined forms in a golden haze, casting long shadows that danced like silent guardians around the ancient ruins. Jake held Elara close, her luminous skin cool against his heated flesh, a contrast that sent shivers racing through him. Her breath came in soft, rhythmic waves, syncing with the distant hum of the planet's winds, as if the world itself conspired to keep them locked in this stolen moment. The artifact pulsed faintly in her hand, its energy a subtle reminder of the victory they'd claimed, but Jake's mind wandered elsewhere, to the curve of her neck, the way her white hair spilled over his arm like a cascade of starlight, and the intoxicating scent of her, a mix of exotic blooms and something uniquely alien, wild and untamed. Elara lifted her head, her violet eyes meeting his with an intensity that made his pulse quicken. "Terran," she whispered, her voice a silken thread weaving through the air, "you speak of fate as if it's a companion you've known all your life. But in Oralis, fate is a capricious spirit, one that teases and torments before it reveals its hand." Her small, pointed ears twitched slightly, a telltale sign of her inner turmoil, and Jake couldn't help but trace a finger along the delicate edge of one, marveling at its softness. She didn't pull away. Instead, a faint lavender blush crept across her cheeks again, deepening as his touch lingered. He grinned, that roguish smile that had disarmed foes and charmed allies across a dozen systems. "Fate or not, princess, I'm not one to question a good thing when it's staring me in the face." His hand slid down her back, following the elegant arch of her spine, the silver fabric of her gown whispering under his palm. It was torn in places from the battle, revealing glimpses of her pale skin, smooth and flawless, like polished marble veined with faint, glowing lines that pulsed with her heartbeat. The gown clung to her curves, accentuating the swell of her hips and the generous form that had first captured his attention in that damned journal. He felt a stirring deep within, a primal urge that the adrenaline of combat had only heightened. But as their lips drew nearer, a low rumble echoed from the horizon, not the storm's remnants, but something mechanical, ominous. Elara tensed in his arms, her body pressing closer instinctively, her full breasts brushing against his chest through the thin barrier of their clothes. "They're not done," she murmured, her breath hot against his ear. "The rebels, my uncle's loyalists. They won't stop until the throne is theirs." Her words carried an edge of fear, but also a fire that mirrored his own resolve. Jake's senses sharpened. He could hear the faint whine of engines approaching, see the dust clouds rising in the distance like harbingers of doom. "We need to move," he said, his voice low and urgent, pulling her toward the vanguard, which sat camouflaged nearby. But Elara hesitated, her hand clutching his arm with surprising strength. "The artifact, it's linked to me. If they capture it, they capture my bloodline's power." Her eyes searched his, vulnerability flickering in their depths, and in that instant, Jake felt a surge of protectiveness that went beyond duty. This wasn't just a princess, she was a woman, fierce and fragile, whose very essence called to him like a siren's song across the void. They dashed toward the ship, her gown flowing behind her like a banner of defiance, the high slits exposing the lithe muscles of her legs as she matched his pace. Laser fire erupted suddenly, scorching the ground mere feet away, and Jake shoved her behind a crystalline outcrop, his body shielding hers. The heat from the blast singed his suit, but he barely noticed, too focused on the way her curves molded against him in the tight space. "Stay down," he growled, peering over the edge. 3 sleek interceptors circled overhead, their weapons charging with a menacing glow. Rebels, all right, hardened warriors from the outer clans, augmented with cybernetic enhancements that made them relentless. Elara's hand slipped to his thigh, not in fear, but in a gesture that sent electricity through him. "Jake," she breathed, her voice laced with a husky timbre he'd never heard before, "your bravery, it's intoxicating." Her fingers traced a pattern on his leg, innocent yet charged, as if testing the boundaries between them. The danger amplified everything, the pounding of his heart, the scent of her skin, the forbidden thrill of her touch. He turned to her, their faces inches apart, and for a heartbeat, the galaxy narrowed to just them. Her lips parted slightly, inviting, and he leaned in, capturing them in a kiss that was raw and desperate, born of survival's edge. The kiss deepened, her mouth soft and yielding, tasting of sweet nectar from Zenthara's forbidden fruits. Her tongue met his tentatively at first, then with growing boldness, exploring the differences between their species, her slight ridges adding a tantalizing texture that made him groan. His hands roamed, one cupping the nape of her neck, the other sliding to the small of her back, pulling her flush against him. She arched into the contact, a soft moan escaping her, vibrating through him like a shockwave. The fabric between them felt like nothing, her heat seeping through, igniting a fire that threatened to consume them both amid the chaos. But another blast rocked the outcrop, shattering the moment. Jake broke away, breath ragged, eyes dark with desire. To be continued, he promised, his voice rough. Grabbing her hand, he led her in a zigzag sprint toward the vanguard, dodging fire that lit the air with acrid smoke. Elara fired back with her scepter, bolts of energy arcing gracefully, her gown whipping around her like a living entity, revealing more with every stride, the curve of her thigh, the dip of her waist, each glimpse fueling his determination. They reached the ship just as a rebel landed nearby, a hulking figure clad in armored exosuit, weapon raised. Jake activated the ramp, shoving Elara inside before turning to face the threat. "Get the engines hot!" he shouted, diving into combat. The rebel charged, but Jake was faster, using the lighter gravity to leap and deliver a crushing blow to the helmet, cracking it open. They grappled, fists and elbows flying, the alien's enhanced strength testing Jake's limits. Pain flared in his ribs from an earlier wound, but he channeled it, twisting to pin the foe and snapping its neck with a grim efficiency that spoke of his Terran heritage, unyielding, unbreakable. Elara watched from the cockpit, her heart pounding not just from fear, but from the sight of him, sweat-glistened muscles straining under his suit, the raw power that made her species' tales of humans seem pale in comparison. As Jake boarded, sealing the hatch, she pulled him into another embrace, her body trembling with adrenaline and something more. "You fight for me as if I'm your world," she whispered, her hands exploring the contours of his chest, fingers dipping under the suit's edge to touch bare skin. The ship lifted off, evading the remaining interceptors, with Jake's expert piloting barrel rolls and sharp dives that pressed them together in the confined space. Alarms blared, but he silenced them, focusing on the stars ahead. Elara straddled his lap in the company pilot's seat, her gown hiking up to reveal the smooth expanse of her thighs, her weight a delicious pressure. "Show me more of this Terran fire," she urged, her voice sultry, eyes hooded with desire. Her hips shifted subtly, grinding against him, eliciting a low growl from deep in his throat. His hands gripped her waist, thumbs brushing the undersides of her breasts through the fabric, feeling the pebbled peaks that betrayed her arousal. The ship's vibrations added to the sensation, a rhythmic hum that mirrored their building tension. "Princess, you're playing with fire," he warned, but his lips found her neck, nipping gently at the glowing veins that pulsed faster under his touch. She gasped, tilting her head back, her white hair fanning out like a halo. The erotic dance continued as they hurtled through the atmosphere, the danger outside heightening the intimacy within, stolen caresses, whispered promises, bodies aching for release. Yet as they broke orbit, a transmission crackled through the comms, a voice laced with malice. "Elara, you cannot hide forever. The throne will be mine, and your human pet will be the first to fall." It was her uncle, the architect of the coup, his fleet amassing on the edge of the system. Suspense hung thick in the air, their passion interrupted but not extinguished, simmering like a star on the verge of supernova. Elara's eyes met Jake's, a mix of lust and resolve. "We must reach Aurala's core worlds," she said, her body still pressed to his, reluctant to part. "But first perhaps we have time to explore what your journal only hinted at." Her hand ventured lower, bold and teasing, as the ship cloaked and slipped into the shadows of space. The journey ahead promised more than battles, it held the allure of forbidden unions, where human grit met alien grace in ways that could reshape destinies. But for now, in the dim glow of the cockpit, they surrendered to the pull between them, bodies entwining in a slow, sensual rhythm that built like a gathering storm, each touch a spark, each sigh a secret revealed. As stars streaked by, Jake traced the lines of her body with reverent fingers, peeling away the remnants of her gown to expose the full glory of her form, curves that defied gravity, skin that shimmered like moonlight on water. She was exquisite, her small ears flushing with that telltale lavender as he worshipped her with kisses, trailing down her collarbone, lingering at the valley between her breasts. Elara's hands fumbled with his suit, eager to feel the hard planes of his chest, the scars that told stories of survival. So different, she murmured, her voice breathy, yet so right. Their exploration grew feverish, hands and mouths mapping uncharted territories, the ship's autopilot granting them this precious interlude. Suspense wove through their intimacy the knowledge that pursuit loomed, that every moment could be their last, making each caress more urgent, each gasp more profound. Elara arched under him, her body responding with an alien fervor, glowing lines brightening as pleasure built, a visual symphony of her ecstasy. In the heart of the void they became one, a fusion of worlds that transcended species, their cries echoing in the confined space like a declaration to the cosmos. But even as bliss crested, the comms pinged again, a warning of incoming vessels. The erotic haze lingered, bodies slick and sated, but the suspense mounted. Would their bond survive the trials ahead, or would the shadows claim them? The warning ping shattered the afterglow like a crack in fragile crystal, pulling Jake and Elara back from the edge of their shared ecstasy into the cold grip of reality. The cockpit lights flickered red, casting ominous shadows across their still entwined bodies, as the Vanguard's sensors screamed of encroaching danger. Elara slid from his lap with a reluctant grace, her glowing skin dimming slightly as she adjusted the remnants of her gown, though it did little to hide the flush of their passion. Jake's hands lingered on her hips for a moment longer, reluctant to let go, before he spun to the controls, his mind shifting gears from lover to warrior in an instant. Multiple signatures, 5, no, 6 vessels closing fast, he muttered, fingers dancing over the console to boost shields and arm the meager weapons array. The ship's engines thrummed louder, a defiant roar against the void, but he knew they were outgunned, outmatched by the sleek, predatory silhouettes now visible on the scanners. Elara leaned over his shoulder, her white hair brushing his cheek like a whisper of silk, her violet eyes narrowing at the display. "My uncle's elite guard," she said, her voice steady but laced with a tremor that betrayed the storm within. "They carry the Shadow Fleet cloaked hunters, designed to strike without mercy. If they board us," she trailed off, but the implication hung heavy: capture, torture, the end of her line, and perhaps the spark of a galactic war. Jake glanced at her, seeing not just the princess, but the woman who'd bared her soul and more to him in the heat of flight. "Then we don't let them," he replied. His tone fierce, igniting a spark in her gaze. He punched in evasive maneuvers, the Vanguard banking sharply, stars blurring into streaks as they dove toward a nearby asteroid field, a chaotic maze of tumbling rocks that might buy them time. The first salvo came without warning, energy lances slicing through space like vengeful spirits, grazing the hull and sending sparks cascading across the interior. The ship bucked wildly, throwing Elara against Jake's chest. He caught her, one arm wrapping protectively around her waist while the other wrestled the yoke. "Hold on," he shouted over the alarms, his heart pounding not just from the adrenaline, but from the raw fear of losing her so soon after finding this unexpected connection. She clung to him, her small ears flattening against her head in distress, but her free hand reached for the auxiliary controls, channeling her own energies through the interface, a Zentharian trick that amplified the shields with an ethereal glow. Together, she breathed, and in that word, Jake felt the weight of their bond solidify, a fusion of human tenacity and alien mysticism that might just be their salvation. As they plunged into the asteroid belt, the pursuit intensified, the Shadow Fleet weaving through the debris with predatory precision. Massive boulders loomed like silent sentinels, some as large as moons, their surfaces pitted and scarred from eons of cosmic collisions. Jake piloted with a mix of skill and sheer audacity, threading the Vanguard through narrow gaps, the ship's frame groaning in protest. A pursuer clipped a rock, exploding in a brilliant fireball that illuminated the field like a newborn star, but the others adapted, their cloaks flickering as they adapted to the interference. "They're learning," Elara warned, her fingers glowing as she diverted power to the thrusters. Jake nodded grimly, spotting a cluster of denser asteroids ahead, a potential ambush point or a deadly trap. "Good. Let's teach them a lesson they won't forget." The tension built like a coiling spring, each near miss heightening the drama of their escape. Laser fire erupted anew, one bolt striking true and breaching the aft compartment. Air hissed out in a brief vortex before emergency seals clamped down. Jake felt the ship lag systems flickering, but he pushed harder, aiming for a massive, rotating behemoth of an asteroid that hid a narrow canyon within. "This is gonna be tight," he growled, sweat beading on his brow. Elara's hand found his thigh again, not in seduction this time, but in solidarity, her touch a grounding force amid the chaos. As they entered the canyon, walls of jagged stone closed in, scraping the hull with shrieks that echoed through the ship. The pursuers followed, their numbers dwindling as one miscalculated and smashed into the rock face, debris pelting the vanguard like hail. But the thrill of survival was short-lived. Emerging from the canyon, they faced the fleet's flagship, a colossal dreadnought that dwarfed the asteroids, its cannons swiveling with mechanical menace. "Uncle Vorath," Elara whispered, recognition dawning like a curse. The comms crackled to life unbidden, Vorath's voice booming through the speakers, oily and triumphant. "Niece, you've played your little game long enough. Surrender the artifact, and I'll make your end swift. As for your Terran consort, I'll enjoy breaking him." Jake's jaw clenched, a surge of protective rage flooding him. "Over my dead body," he shot back, though he knew the odds were dire. The dreadnought fired a tractor beam, latching onto the vanguard with an invisible grip that slowed their escape, drawing them inexorably closer. Curiosity gnawed at Jake amid the peril. Why Vorath? What drove this betrayal? Elara's face paled, her glowing lines dimming as memories surfaced. "He was always jealous of my mother's throne," she confessed in a rush, as if the words could ward off the inevitable. "But there's more. He's allied with the Void Syndicates, outsiders who promise him power in exchange for Zenthara's secrets." The revelation hit like a thunderclap, surprising even Jake. This wasn't just a family squabble, but a conspiracy that could unravel alliances across sectors. Thrilling as it was terrifying, the stakes soared, their survival now key to preventing a larger catastrophe. In a dramatic bid for freedom, Jake rerouted all power to the engines, overloading them in a desperate burst. The vanguard surged forward, straining against the beam, sparks flying from consoles as systems protested. Elara joined him, infusing the artifact's energy into the core, a risky fusion that made the ship pulse with unnatural light. "If this works," she trailed off, her eyes locking with his in a moment of profound connection. The beam wavered, then snapped, the backlash sending shockwaves through space that crippled two more pursuers. But Vorath wasn't done. The dreadnought unleashed a barrage, missiles streaking like comets toward them. The climax erupted in a symphony of destruction. Jake spun the ship in a corkscrew evade, missiles detonating harmlessly against asteroids, but one grazed close, blasting a hole in the wing. Alarms wailed, oxygen levels dropping, as they hurtled toward a nebula's edge, a swirling cloud of gas that could hide them or doom them. Elara gasped, clutching the artifact tighter, its power flared, revealing hidden properties, a shield that enveloped the ship just as the final missile struck. The impact rocked them, throwing Jake from his seat, but the barrier held, a surprising twist that left Vorath's voice cursing in frustration over the comms. Wounded but alive, they plunged into the nebula, sensors going blind in the electromagnetic soup. The thrilling chase gave way to an eerie calm, the ship drifting as repairs hummed automatically. Jake pulled Elara into his arms again, their breaths ragged, bodies bruised but spirits unbroken. "That was too close," he admitted, his voice husky with emotion. She nodded, her head resting on his chest, listening to the steady thrum of his human heart, a rhythm so different from her own, yet perfectly in sync now. But curiosity lingered like a shadow, as the nebula's colors danced across the viewscreen. Elara's eyes widened at a faint signal emanating from the artifact. "It's calling to something," she murmured, surprise etching her features. Scans revealed an ancient outpost hidden within the cloud, a forgotten Zentharian relic, perhaps holding answers to Vorath's plot. Thrilling possibilities unfolded: allies, weapons, or a trap that could seal their fate. The drama intensified as they approached, the outpost materializing like a ghost from the mist, a sprawling structure of crystalline spires, dormant but awakening at the artifact's touch. Doors arised open, inviting them in, but Jake's instincts screamed caution. "This could change everything," Elara said, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and excitement. As they docked, a holographic figure shimmered to life, an ancestor of hers, long dead, with a message that shattered assumptions. "The throne's true heir is not of blood alone. The Terran bond awakens the old pacts. Surprise rippled through them. Jake a key to Zenthara's destiny? The implications were staggering, thrusting them deeper into a web of intrigue, where love and legacy intertwined. But alarms blared anew. Vorath's forces had followed, emerging from the nebula like predators scenting blood. The outpost's defenses activated, ancient lasers firing in a dazzling display, but the battle was far from over. In the heart of the structure, amid glowing chambers filled with forgotten tech, Jake and Elara raced to unlock the secrets, their hands clasped as energy surged around them. Vorath boarded, his augmented form a towering nightmare, flanked by elite guards. The confrontation built to a fever pitch, blades clashing, energy bolts flying, Jake's raw strength meeting Vorath's cybernetic might in a brutal dance. Elara channeled the artifact, her body aglow, surprising everyone by unleashing a wave that disrupted the guard's implants. Jake seized the moment, tackling Vorath in a grapple that echoed through the halls, fists pounding against armor until a crack formed. For her, Jake roared, driving a shard of crystal into the breach, short-circuiting the traitor. Vorath fell, his eyes wide in defeat, but not before whispering a final, curious revelation: the syndicates, they come for all worlds. Your bond is their fear. The words hung like a prophecy, thrilling and ominous, as the outpost stabilized, revealing maps to hidden allies. Exhausted, victorious, Jake and Elara collapsed together, the climax's echoes fading into a curious calm. What lay ahead? Surprises untold, in a galaxy forever changed by their union. Yet the thrill of the unknown beckoned, drawing them onward into the stars. As the echoes of Vorath's defeat faded into the crystalline hum of the outpost, Jake and Elara leaned against each other, their breaths sinking in ragged harmony amid the glowing chambers that now pulsed with a softer, more welcoming light. The maps unfurled before them like holographic tapestries, weaving tales of hidden allies scattered across forgotten sectors, worlds where ancient pacts between Zentharians and early Terran explorers had been forged in secrecy. Jake wiped a streak of grime from his face, his muscles aching from the brawl, but a grin tugged at his lips as he glanced at Elara. Her gown, now more tattered than regal, clung to her in ways that stirred memories of their earlier intimacy, her white hair disheveled yet somehow more alluring in the disarray. Well, princess, looks like we're not just running from trouble anymore. We're diving headfirst into a cosmic conspiracy. Syndicates, huh? Sounds like the kind of party where everyone brings their own doom. Elara managed a weak laugh, her violet eyes sparkling with a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration, but she pulled away slightly, straightening her posture as if remembering her royal bearing. The artifact in her hand dimmed, its energy spent for the moment, leaving her skin's glow to fade back to its natural luminescence. The Void Syndicates are no jest, Jake. They're a shadow network, trading in forbidden tech and shattered empires. If our bond frightens them, it means we're a threat, or a target. She traced a finger over one of the maps, zooming in on a cluster of stars labeled with cryptic Zentharian runes. But as she did, an awkward flush crept up her neck, that familiar lavender tint blooming on her pale cheeks. In the heat of battle, she'd forgotten about the journal still tucked in her satchel, its pages a silent witness to their whirlwind connection. Now, in this relative quiet, the words she'd read earlier echoed in her mind, making her shift uncomfortably. Jake noticed, of course, his Terran instincts sharp as ever. He raised an eyebrow, leaning casually against a console that beeped in protest under his weight. What's got you squirming like a cadet on his first spacewalk? Don't tell me the mighty princess is embarrassed about a little post-battle cuddle. He meant it lightly, injecting a dose of humor to ease the tension, but the words landed with unintended precision. Alara's small, pointed ears twitched, and she shot him a look that was equal parts regal disdain and playful spark. Embarrassed, hardly, but your writings, they paint quite the picture. Curves like a nebula? Really, Terran? In orales we compose sonnets for such admiration, not scribble them like grocery lists. The drama of the moment heightened as Jake's face turned a shade redder than the warning lights still flickering overhead. He rubbed the back of his neck, chuckling awkwardly. Hey, cut me some slack. I'm an explorer, not a poet. Besides, if I wrote sonnets, they'd probably rhyme but with what and get me court-martialed back home. The humor diffused the awkwardness just enough, drawing a genuine giggle from Elara, a sound like tinkling chimes that made the outpost feel less like a tomb and more like a haven. But beneath the levity, the stakes loomed larger. The maps revealed that the nearest ally world, Zenthara, was a mere jump away, but it was guarded by syndicate patrols. One wrong move, and their budding romance could end in a blaze of plasma fire. They gathered what supplies they could from the outpost energy cells for the vanguard, a few Zentharian gadgets that Jake eyed with suspicious curiosity, like a handheld shield projector that looked suspiciously like a fancy umbrella. "This thing better not turn me into a frog or something," he quipped, testing it with a flick that sent a harmless barrier shimmering around him. Elara rolled her eyes, but her smile betrayed her amusement. "Frogs, your Earth myths are quaint. No, it projects a field strong enough to deflect blasts. Useful for a human who charges into fights like a rampaging beast." Their banter flowed easily now, a rhythm born of survival, but as they prepared to depart, an awkward hitch arose. The outpost's AI, awakening fully, demanded a bonding ritual to release the full map data, a cultural protocol from ancient times that involved sharing personal truths. Elara explained it haltingly, her cheeks flushing again as the holographic ancestor reappeared, its ethereal form insisting on the right. "It's intimate. We must reveal something vulnerable to prove our alliance isn't fleeting." Jake blinked, the drama escalating as he realized this wasn't just talk. The chamber sealed shut, trapping them until complied. "Vulnerable? Like what, my favorite color? It's blue, by the way, matches your eyes when you're mad." He tried humor to mask his discomfort, but Elara's expression turned serious, her body language shifting as she stepped closer, the high slits of her gown revealing the graceful lines of her legs in the low light. "No games, Jake. For my people, it's about trust. I'll start." She took a breath, her voice softening. "I've never felt truly seen until you. Your blunt words, they scare me because they awaken desires I've buried under duty." The admission hung in the air, heightening the emotional drama like a tightening noose. Jake swallowed hard, the awkwardness palpable as he searched for words. "All right, fair's fair. Back on Earth, I lost my crew to a syndicate raid years ago. Blamed myself. That's why I wander alone, keeps people safe from my bad luck. But with you, damn, Elara, you make me want to stick around." The confession spilled out, raw and unpolished, and the AI hummed approvingly, unlocking the maps with a flourish of lights. But the moment left them both exposed, standing in silence that crackled with unspoken tension. Jake broke it with a wry grin. "Well, that was more therapy than I signed up for. Next time, let's just arm wrestle for secrets." Elara laughed, the sound easing the knot in his chest, but as they boarded the Vanguard, the humor gave way to renewed urgency. The ship lifted off from the outpost, cloaking engaged, but sensors picked up Syndicate scouts probing the nebula's edges. "They're close," Elara whispered, her hand slipping into his as he piloted them toward Zenthara. The jump drive charged with a whine, the stars stretching into hyperspace lines, but midway through, a glitch caused by residual damage from Vorath's assault yanked them out prematurely, dumping them in an asteroid graveyard, teeming with debris and hidden mines. Drama surged as alarms blared, the ship spinning wildly amid floating wreckage. "Hold tight," Jake yelled, dodging a massive hull fragment that grazed their shields. Elara, strapped in beside him, activated her scepter, deflecting smaller shards with bursts of energy. But in the chaos, an awkward mishap struck. A sudden lurch sent her tumbling into his lap, her curvaceous form pressing against him in a way that was anything but convenient. "Not the time, princess," he grunted, though his voice held a hint of laughter, his hands steady on the controls even as her proximity sent his focus scattering. She scrambled back, mortified, her ears flattening. "Apologies, your ship's gravity is as unruly as its owner." The quip landed with perfect timing, drawing a bark of laughter from Jake mid the peril, lightening the mood just enough to keep panic at bay. They stabilized, but the mines activated syndicate traps pulsing with red warnings. One detonated nearby, rocking the Vanguard and shorting out non-essential systems, including the lights. In the dim emergency glow, they worked frantically to reroute power, their bodies brushing in the confined space, creating awkward sparks of tension. "Pass me that conduit," Jake said, reaching blindly, only to grab her hand instead. "Whoops, wrong wire." Elara snorted, a rare undignified sound for royalty. "If this is your idea of courtship, Terran, no wonder humans conquer galaxies alone." Her humor cut through the drama, but the mines closed in, forcing a desperate gamble. Jake fired a decoy probe laced with the artifact's energy, luring the explosives away in a chain reaction that lit the void like fireworks. Clear but shaken, they limped toward Nethuria, the planet emerging as a verdant orb ringed by orbital defenses. Elara hailed the allies, her voice commanding as she invoked the ancient Pax. But upon landing in a lush, bioluminescent forest clearing, drama peaked again. The Nethurian elders, tall beings with vine-like tendrils for hair, greeted them with suspicion. A human? Bound to our kin? One elder intoned, scanning Jake with glowing orbs. The awkwardness amplified when they demanded proof of the bond, echoing the outpost's ritual, but with a twist, a shared vision induced by a ceremonial nectar. Reluctantly they drank, the liquid sweet and heady, plunging them into a hallucinatory realm where their memories intertwined. Jake relived Elara's courtly loneliness, feeling her isolation like a weight on his chest. She experienced his Terran bravado masking grief, her heart aching in sympathy. But humor intruded in surreal flashes, visions of Jake's journal entries manifesting as cartoonish sketches, with exaggerated curves dancing around them. Even in dreams, you obsess over my assets? Elara teased within the vision, her laughter bubbling like champagne. Jake shot back, hey, if the nebula fits. The lighthearted exchange grounded them, pulling them out of the trance stronger, the elders nodding approval. Yet, as alliances formed, a scout reported syndicate forces massing. Vorath's death had only enraged them, turning the hunt personal. Jake and Elara stood side by side, the drama of impending war mingling with their awkward, evolving intimacy. Ready for round two? He asked, squeezing her hand. She smirked. With you? Always a surprise. Humor laced their resolve, but the shadows deepened, promising trials that would test not just their bond, but the fate of worlds. The Nethurians armed them with advanced gear, a sleek exosuit for Jake that hugged his frame like a second skin, and an enhanced gown for Elara that shimmered with protective fields, though it still accentuated her figure in distracting ways. This thing makes me look like a space knight, Jake complained lightly, flexing in the mirror-like surface of a Nethurian pod. Elara eyed him appreciatively, but the moment turned awkward when an elder walked in mid-pose. Humans and their vanity, the elder muttered, leaving Jake frozen in embarrassment. Busted, Elara whispered, stifling giggles that infected him too. As they planned the counterstrike, poring over strategies in a war room alive with holographic battles, an unexpected transmission pierced the air, a syndicate emissary demanding surrender, with footage of captured Zentharian loyalists. The drama hit like a gut punch, Elara's face drained of color, recognizing friends among the prisoners. We must rescue them, she declared, her voice breaking slightly. Jake nodded, but added with humorous grit, yeah, and I'll make sure to autograph their cells on the way out. The quip earned a reluctant smile, but the awkward truth loomed. Their bond, now public knowledge via the visions, made them symbols, lovers in a legend that could inspire or doom. Venturing into syndicate territory meant stealth, but awkwardness struck during infiltration, disguised as traders. They navigated a black market station, teeming with aliens of every stripe. Jake's attempt at Zentharian etiquette, bowing too deeply, resulted in him headbutting a vendor's stall, spilling exotic fruits everywhere. Smooth Terran, Elara hissed, helping him up amid the chaos, her own disguise slipping to reveal an ear. Laughter threatened to bubble up, but they bolted, turning the mishap into a diversion that let them slip deeper. The rescue built to heart-pounding drama, laser grids, patrols, and a final showdown in the detention block. Jake's humor shone in tense whispers, think they'll serve snacks after we bust em out. Keeping spirits high as they freed the prisoners. But a guard's alarm triggered a chase, heightening the stakes with every corridor. Elara's scepter cleared paths, Jake's fists handled the rest, their synergy a beautiful chaos. Escaping in a stolen shuttle, they rendezvoused with Nethurian forces, the awkward intimacies of their journey forging unbreakable trust. Yet as stars blurred by, Vorath's words echoed, the syndicates feared their bond. What greater dramas awaited? For now, in the shuttle's quiet, Jake pulled Elara close, whispering, nebula or not, you're stuck with me. She smiled, the humor in his eyes mirroring her own, as the galaxy held its breath. As the stars blurred by in hypnotic streaks, the shuttle's quiet enveloped Jake and Elara like a cocoon, a rare sanctuary amid the chaos that had defined their whirlwind alliance. Vorath's ominous words lingered in the back of Jake's mind, a distant thundercloud on the horizon of their hard-won victory. But for this fleeting moment, he pushed them aside, focusing instead on the warmth of her presence beside him. The rescued Zentharian loyalists, now safely en route to Nethuria in a convoy behind them, had given their thanks with bowed heads and glowing eyes, leaving the pair alone in the small craft to debrief, or so the official logs would say. In truth, the air between them crackled with unspoken promises, the humor from their earlier escapades fading into a deeper, more intimate tension that had been building since that first stolen kiss. Jake pulled Elara closer, his arm draping around her shoulders with a gentleness that belied the strength he'd shown in battle. She nestled against him, her head resting on his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, a sound so human, so reassuringly constant in its thrum. The exosuit he'd donned on Nethuria hugged his frame, but he'd unzipped it partway, revealing the sheen of sweat on his skin from the adrenaline-fueled rescue. Elara's enhanced gown, shimmering with protective fields, had survived the fray mostly intact, its fabric soft and flowing against her curves, though a few rips hinted at the perils they'd faced. "Nebula or not," he whispered again, his voice low and teasing, "you're stuck with me." She looked up, her violet eyes meeting his with a spark that sent a shiver down his spine. The humor in his gaze mirrored her own, but beneath it lay a hunger, a curiosity about the boundaries they were both eager to explore. In the dim glow of the shuttle's controls, Elara's hand found his, her fingers interlacing with a deliberate slowness that made his pulse quicken. "And you with me, Terran," she replied softly, her small pointed ears twitching slightly as she leaned in, her breath warm against his neck. The galaxy might hold its breath, but here, in this private space hurtling through the void, time seemed to stretch, allowing them to savor the connection that had blossomed from awkward confessions into something profound. Jake turned to face her fully, his free hand cupping her cheek, tracing the faint luminescent lines that pulsed faintly under her pale skin, a reminder of her alien heritage, yet one that only heightened her allure. Their lips met in a kiss that started gentle, exploratory, but quickly deepened as the pent-up emotions from the day's trials surged forth. Elara responded with a soft sigh, her body shifting to press closer, the curves that had first captured his imagination now molding against him in a way that ignited every nerve. She tasted of the sweet nectar from the ceremonial drink they'd shared earlier, a lingering hint of exotic fruits that made the moment feel even more otherworldly. Jake's hands wandered down her back, following the elegant arch of her spine, the fabric of her gown parting easily under his touch. He felt the warmth of her skin, smooth and inviting, as he helped her slip out of the garment's confines, revealing the graceful lines of her form, the swell of her hips, the soft fullness that had inspired those journal entries. She blushed that familiar lavender hue, but there was no shyness now, only a bold invitation in her eyes as she tugged at his exosuit, eager to feel the hard planes of his chest, the scars that told stories of his resilience. The shuttle's autopilot hummed steadily, granting them this interlude without interruption, the stars outside a silent audience to their unfolding intimacy. Elara's white hair cascaded over her shoulders like a veil of moonlight as she straddled his lap, her weight a delicious pressure that made him groan softly. Her hands explored him with a mix of curiosity and reverence, tracing the contours of his muscles, feeling the way his body responded to her touch. "Your strength, it's not just in battle," she murmured, her voice husky, as she leaned down to kiss his collarbone, her lips leaving a trail of warmth that sent sparks racing through him. Jake's fingers tangled in her hair, guiding her gently, his other hand caressing the curve of her thigh, savoring the silkiness of her skin. The differences between them, her glowing veins, his rugged texture, only amplified the sensations, turning every brush and press into a symphony of discovery. As their bodies moved together in a slow, rhythmic dance, the tension that had built through chases and confessions released in waves of shared pleasure. Elara arched against him, her breath coming in soft gasps, her small ears flushing deeper as she felt the depth of their connection. Jake held her close, his movements tender yet insistent, matching her pace as they lost themselves in the moment. The shuttle's vibrations added a subtle undercurrent, enhancing the intimacy, making it feel as if the very cosmos conspired to heighten their union. Whispers escaped them, endearments in Terran slang and Zentharian melodies, blending into a language all their own. Her curves pressed against him, soft and yielding, while his firmness grounded her, creating a balance that felt destined, inevitable. Time blurred as they explored further, bodies entwining in a gentle exploration that celebrated their bond. Elara's glow brightened with each peak, illuminating the cabin in soft pulses that mirrored the ecstasy building within. Jake marveled at her responsiveness, the way she trembled under his caresses, her hands gripping his shoulders as waves of sensation washed over them both. It was more than physical. It was a merging of worlds, human passion meeting alien grace in a harmony that left them both breathless. She whispered his name like a prayer, her violet eyes locking with his in a gaze that spoke volumes, and he responded in kind, his voice rough with emotion as he guided them to mutual release. In the aftermath, they lay tangled together on the shuttle's narrow berth, skins cooling in the recycled air, hearts still racing. Elara traced lazy patterns on his chest, her head pillowed on his arm, while Jake stroked her hair, the white strands soft between his fingers. That was beyond words, he admitted, a satisfied smile playing on his lips. She nodded, her blush lingering but now accompanied by a content glow. In Orales, we call it star-weaving binding souls under the cosmos. But with you it's something new. The humor returned gently as Jake chuckled. Star-weaving, huh? Sounds better than my journal's scribbles. Guess I'll have to update those entries. But even in this serene afterglow, the drama of their quest crept back in. The console pinged softly a message from the Netherian elders confirming the Loyalists' safe arrival and urging haste to the core worlds. Elara sat up slightly, her gown draped loosely over her, the fabric catching the light in mesmerizing ways. We can't linger forever, she said, though her tone held regret. Jake pulled her back down for one more kiss, lingering and sweet. No, but we've got time for this. Their bodies pressed close again, reigniting the spark, but this time with a slower, more languid pace, savoring the quiet intimacy before the storm. As they indulged once more, the shuttle carried them onward, the stars witnessing their deepened bond. Elara's hands roamed with newfound confidence, exploring the lines of his body, while Jake's touches elicited soft moans from her, their movements fluid and attuned. The pleasure built gradually, a crescendo of gentle caresses and whispered affections, culminating in another shared peak that left them entwined, sated, and stronger. Her curves fit perfectly against him, a puzzle completed, and in those moments, the threats of syndicates and thrones felt distant, conquerable. Yet, as they dressed and returned to the controls, the reality of their path asserted itself. The maps from the outpost glowed on the screen, pointing to the next waypoint, a neutral station where allies awaited, but rumors of syndicate spies abounded. Elara's hand found Jake's again, squeezing reassuringly. Whatever comes, we face it together. He nodded, his eyes tracing her form with appreciation. Damn right, and after, more star-weaving. She laughed, the sound light and promising, as they plotted their course. The journey deepened their connection, stolen glances and touches keeping the flame alive amid preparations. In quiet hours they shared more stories of past loves, dreams of peace building emotional layers to their physical bond. Elara's alien physiology brought subtle wonders, her glowing lines responded to his touch, creating visual echoes of their pleasure, while Jake's endurance amazed her, drawing out their moments into blissful eternities. As Netheria faded behind them, the station loomed ahead, a bustling hub of species from across the sectors. Docking brought new challenges, navigating crowds where awkward encounters could expose them. But their intimacy had forged resilience. A brush of hands in public now carried private meaning, heightening the thrill. Inside the station, they met a contact, an enigmatic trader with ties to the ancient Pax. Over dim lights and hushed talks, plans unfolded: infiltrate a syndicate outpost to retrieve data on their fleet. But drama stirred when the trader eyed their closeness. A Terran and Zentharian? Bold. But bonds like yours draw eyes. Elara blushed, Jake grinned. Let him look, we're unbreakable. The mission loomed, but in their quarters that night, they surrendered again to passion, bodies moving in familiar harmony. Elara's form arched under his, her soft cries filling the space, while Jake's strength enveloped her, their union a defiance against the odds. Pleasure crested in gentle waves, leaving them wrapped in each other's arms, ready for whatever dawn brought. As sleep claimed them, the galaxy whispered of greater trials, but in their embrace, hope burned bright. As sleep claimed them, the galaxy whispered of greater trials, but in their embrace, hope burned bright, a fragile flame against the endless night. The shuttle's hum lulled Jake into a deep, dreamless rest, his arm draped protectively over Elara's form, her white hair splayed across his chest like a banner of surrender. Hours slipped by in the void, the autopilot charting a steady course toward the neutral station where allies awaited, a hub of flickering lights and shadowy deals that promised reinforcements against the encroaching syndicate threat. Elara stirred first, her violet eyes fluttering open to the soft glow of the console, a faint ping alerting her to an incoming transmission. She slipped from his grasp carefully, not wanting to wake him, her enhanced gown whispering as she moved to the controls. The message was encrypted, bearing the seal of Orali's High Council, a group of elders she'd trusted implicitly, guardians of her throne's legacy. With a graceful flick of her fingers, she decoded it, expecting updates on the Loyalists' integration, or perhaps warnings of syndicate movements. Instead, the holographic display bloomed with text that made her blood run cold, her pale skin losing even its subtle luminescence. Princess Elara, the message read, the artifact's activation has confirmed the prophecy. The Terran bond is the key, but not as we foresaw. Return at once. The human must be contained for the greater good. Contained? Her mind reeled, the word echoing like a betrayal. She scrolled further, uncovering attached files, scans of ancient texts, prophecies she'd studied as a child, but with new interpretations highlighted in stark red. The bond wasn't a union of equals, it was a catalyst, designed to awaken dormant powers in her bloodline at the cost of the Terran's life force. Jake's vitality, his unyielding human spirit, was the fuel that would elevate her to godlike status, securing Orali's against all foes, but draining him until nothing remained. Elara's hand trembled as she muted the display, glancing back at Jake's sleeping form. How could this be? The Council had sent her to Zenthara knowing of the risks, positioning her to encounter a Terran like him. Was their meeting orchestrated? The journal's discovery, the rebels' timely attack, it all snapped into a horrifying clarity. She wasn't just a princess fleeing a coup, she was a pawn in a larger game, her people's survival hinging on sacrificing the one being who'd made her feel truly alive. Tears welled in her eyes, unbidden and hot, as she wrestled with the revelation. Her fingers hovered over the delete command, but curiosity and a desperate hope for misunderstanding drove her to delve deeper into the files. There, buried in the appendices, was a personal note from the head elder, her mother's confidante Elara, forgive us. The syndicates aren't the true enemy, they are the distraction. The void beyond our stars awakens, and only your ascension can seal it. The human is the vessel. Do what must be done. The shuttle jolted slightly, a minor course correction, but it was enough to rouse Jake. He blinked awake, stretching with a yawn that turned into a concerned frown as he saw her expression. Hey, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost or whatever passes for one on Zenthara. He sat up, reaching for her, but Elara flinched away, her small pointed ears flattening against her head in distress. The motion was subtle, but it stung him like a slap. Elara, talk to me. She turned the hologram toward him, her voice barely a whisper. This changes everything. As he read, his face hardened, the warmth of their recent intimacy giving way to a cold realization. The twist hit him like a supernova, not just a betrayal by her counsel, but the implication that their love, their bond, was engineered to end in his demise. Jake stood slowly, his exosuit creaking as he processed the words. So, I'm what, a battery for your throne? All this, the chases, the battles, the us, it was all leading to this? His voice cracked with hurt, but anger simmered beneath, a human fire that refused to be extinguished. Elara shook her head vehemently, stepping closer despite her turmoil. No, Jake. I didn't know. I swear by the stars I thought our meeting was fate, not a scheme. The artifact, it was meant to unite worlds, not consume them. But doubt crept into her words, memories flashing of council briefings that had seemed innocuous at the time, hints about necessary sacrifices and the Terran factor. Had she been blind or willfully ignorant? The powerful twist unraveled the fabric of their trust, leaving them adrift in a sea of questions. Was Vorath's coup a fabrication, a push to force her into Jake's path? And the syndicates, were they unwitting pawns, or complicit in this cosmic deception? The shuttle's alarms blared suddenly, yanking them from the emotional vortex. Sensors detected incoming vessels, not syndicate, but Orali's enforcers, sleek royal interceptors closing in with precision. "They're here for us," Elara gasped, her hands flying to the controls. Jake moved to her side, his instincts overriding the betrayal's sting. "For me, you mean? Your council's cleanup crew." The words were bitter, but he didn't pull away when she touched his arm, her eyes pleading. "We can fight this, together. I won't let them take you." He met her gaze, the surprise of the twist still reverberating through him, but a spark of defiance ignited. "Damn right we will. But first, we need answers and a way out." They evaded the first wave with Jake's piloting flare, diving into a nearby debris field from an ancient space battle, remnants of wars long forgotten. The enforcers pursued relentlessly, their comms flooding the shuttle with demands: "Princess, deliver the Terran. It's the only way to save Orales." Elara silenced them, her resolve hardening. As they maneuvered through twisted wreckage, Jake hacked into the artifact's interface using a gadget from Zenthara, uncovering layers of hidden data. What he found deepened the twist, a subroutine revealing that the prophecy wasn't Zentharian at all, but implanted by an external force centuries ago. "This code, it's not your tech," he muttered, fingers racing. "It's Syndicate. They've been playing your people like puppets, setting up this ascension to weaken Orales from within." The revelation exploded like a bombshell, surprising even Elara, who had thought her world's history immutable. The Syndicates hadn't allied with Vorath, they'd engineered the entire lineage crisis, forging the prophecies to manipulate royal bloodlines into self-destruction. Her ascension would open a rift, not seal one, inviting void entities, ancient horrors from beyond the stars, to consume everything. Jake's bond wasn't a drain, it was the antidote, a human variable the Syndicates hadn't anticipated, capable of rewriting the code and breaking the cycle. "We're not victims," Jake said, a grim smile forming. "We're the glitch in their system." But the enforcers closed in, one latching a boarding clamp onto the shuttle. Drama escalated as armored figures breached the hull, loyal to the Council's lies. Elara wielded her scepter, energy bolts crackling, while Jake fought hand to hand, his exosuit amplifying blows that sent assailants reeling. "For the princess," one shouted, but Elara countered, "No, for the truth." In the melee, she accessed the artifact, channeling Jake's touch to initiate a override protocol. The device pulsed wildly, sending feedback waves that disrupted the enforcers' implants, revealing their own manipulations. Many were unwitting thralls, programmed by Syndicate tech embedded in their gear. The twist culminated in a heart-stopping standoff. The lead enforcer, unmasked as Elara's long-lost brother thought dead in a prior war, hesitated, his eyes clearing from the haze. "Sister, what have we done?" The surprise rippled through them. He wasn't a traitor but a victim, rescued and reprogrammed by the Syndicates to enforce the prophecy. With Jake's help, Elara freed him, the artifact's power purging the foreign code. The enforcers turned, pledging anew to the true throne, their fleet now an asset against the real enemy. As the dust settled, Jake and Elara stood amid the wreckage, the powerful twist reshaping their path. No longer fugitives, they commanded a growing force, but the void entities loomed larger, awakened by the artifact's stirrings. "We end this," Jake declared, pulling her into an embrace that felt earned anew. Elara nodded, her glow returning brighter. Together, as equals. The surprise had tested them, but in its wake, their bond emerged unbreakable, a beacon against the encroaching dark. Yet, as they set course for the Syndicate core, a final whisper from the artifact echoed: "The void calls your name, Terran. It hungers for what you hold." Jake shivered, the twist's aftershocks lingering. What secret did he carry, unknown even to himself? The stars held their breath, promising revelations that could shatter worlds. The stars held their breath, promising revelations that could shatter worlds. But in the command deck of the newly commandeered Enforcer flagship, Jake and Elara found themselves navigating a different kind of storm, one brewed from uneasy alliances and the weight of unspoken truths. The vessel, rechristened the Aurora in a hasty ceremony by Elara's brother, Kale, hummed with the energy of a crew piecing itself back together, loyalists shaking off the fog of Syndicate programming, like sleepers awakening from a nightmare. Kale, tall and imposing with the same pale skin and pointed ears as his sister, paced the bridge, his eyes a deeper shade of violet darting between holographic displays and the human who had upended everything. "The Syndicate core is fortified," he said, his voice resonant with the authority of someone who'd been presumed dead for years. "We'll need more than luck to breach it. And this artifact. It whispers to you, Terran? Jake leaned against a console, arms crossed over his exosuit, trying to project the casual confidence that had carried him through countless scrapes. But the artifact's final whisper echoed in his mind, a nagging itch he couldn't scratch. What did he hold that the void hungered for? He glanced at Elara, who stood nearby, her enhanced gown repaired but still bearing the scars of battle, clinging to her curves in a way that distracted him at the worst moments. Whispers? Sounds like your family's heirloom has a crush on me. Maybe it's jealous of all the quality time we've been spending. He winked at Elara, injecting a bit of humor to cut the tension, but Kale's expression remained stone cold, his ears twitching in what Jake was learning meant irritation among Zentharians. Elara shot Jake a warning look, her cheeks tinting lavender as she stepped between them. Kale, Jake's bond with the artifact is what saved us all. Without him, we'd still be puppets. But even as she defended him, drama simmered beneath her words. The twist of the prophecy had left scars, questions about whether their connection was truly fate or a manipulated spark. Kale nodded reluctantly, but his gaze lingered on Jake with the protective edge that screamed Big Brother scrutiny. Very well, but if this void calls his name, we must prepare. Scans show anomalies in your biosignature, human. Care to explain? The bridge fell silent, crew members pretending to focus on their stations while eavesdropping shamelessly. Jake felt the heat rise in his face, awkward didn't begin to cover it. Anomalies? He'd always chalked up his uncanny luck in battles to grit, not some hidden cosmic quirk. Bio what now? Jake stammered, rubbing the back of his neck, his attempt at nonchalance crumbling under Kale's stare. Look, I'm just a guy from Earth's backwaters. If there's something weird in my scans, it's probably from that sketchy street food on Rigel 7. Gave me indigestion for weeks. The quip drew a few muffled chuckles from the crew, lightening the mood just enough, but Elara's eyes widened in concern, her hand reaching out to touch his arm. The contact sent a familiar spark through him, a reminder of their intimate moments, but here, in front of her brother and a bridge full of aliens, it felt like walking a tightrope over a black hole. Kale's brows furrowed deeper. Humor won't shield you from the void, Terran. Our medbay will uncover the truth. Sister, escort him. We can't risk unknowns at the core. The order hung like a decree, heightening the drama as Elara led Jake down the corridors, the ship's lights casting elongated shadows that mirrored the uncertainty gnawing at them. He's just worried, she murmured, her voice soft, but Jake could sense the undercurrent of her own doubts. After thinking he was gone, it's a lot. Jake nodded, but as they entered the med bay, a sterile chamber alive with glowing scanners and holographic interfaces, the awkwardness escalated. A Zentharian medic, a wiry female with tendrils of white hair braided intricately, gestured for Jake to lie on the exam table. Remove your suit, please, full scan required. Jake froze, glancing at Elara who hovered nearby. All of it, in front of company. The medic blinked impassively. Modesty is a Terran construct, proceed. Elara's lavender blush deepened, her ears flattening as she turned away slightly, but not before Jake caught her stifling a smile. I'll wait outside, she offered, but Kale's voice crackled over the intercom. Stay, sister. Witness the results. Trapped, Jake stripped down to basics, his muscled frame exposed under the clinical lights, feeling like a specimen in a zoo. This is what I get for playing hero, he muttered, lying back as the scanner hummed to life. Next time, let's skip the family reunions. Elara chuckled softly, the humor a brief lifeline, but as the results projected in swirling holograms, the laughter died. Anomalies indeed, traces of void energy woven into his DNA, not from recent exposure, but innate, as if he'd been born with shadows in his veins. What the hell? Jake sat up abruptly, the table creaking under him. The medic's eyes widened. Impossible. This signature matches ancient void spawn entities our ancestors sealed away. You're part void? Drama exploded like a hull breach. Elara gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, while Kale burst into the room, scepter drawn. Explain this, human. Are you a syndicate plant? Jake raised his hands defensively, still half-dressed, the situation veering into absurd awkwardness. Whoa, easy there, bro-in-law. I didn't sign up for being part monster. Last I checked, my family tree was all Earth stock, no tentacles or cosmic hunger involved. But the scans didn't lie, fragments of memories surfaced, unbidden childhood nightmares of endless dark, unexplained survivals in deadly voids during his explorer days. The void hungered for what he held a key to its release, embedded in his very essence. Tensions skyrocketed as alarms blared, syndicate scouts probing their position, drawn by the artifact's flare during the scan. They sense him, Kale growled, glaring at Jake. Your presence is a beacon. Elara stepped forward, her voice firm amid the chaos. Then we use it, turn the hunter into bait. The plan formed rapidly, heightening the stakes, lure the scouts into a trap, extract intel on the core's defenses. But the awkward undercurrents persisted as they geared up. Kale pulled Elara aside, whispering fiercely. He's dangerous, sister. That bondit could consume you. Jake overheard, his heart twisting, but he masked it with a grin. Hey, if I'm part void, does that mean I get superpowers? Like eating black holes for breakfast. The quip eased Elara's worry, drawing a reluctant smirk from Kale. Foolish human. Let's see if your powers keep you alive. The ambush unfolded in a nearby nebula, the Aurora cloaked amid swirling gases, Jake positioned as decoy in a shuttle pod. Drama pulsed through every comm exchange, Elara's voice tight with fear as syndicate ships emerged, their hulls twisted with void-infused tech. Jake, they're locking on. Pull back. But he held position, the artifact amplifying his signal, drawing them in like moths to flame. Awkward humor cut through when a syndicate hail came through. Surrender the hybrid and we'll spare your flea. Jake laughed over the line. Hybrid, that's new. Tell your boss I prefer cosmic stud. The distraction worked. Enforcers struck from shadows, boarding parties clashing in zero-G fury. Blades sang against armor, energy blasts illuminating the void. Jake fought aboard a captured scout, his movements unnaturally fluid, as if the void in him awakened, dodging strikes with preternatural speed, disarming foes with bursts of dark energy that surprised even him. Whoa, okay, that was cool, he panted, humor lacing his awe. But drama peaked when a syndicate commander revealed more. You were engineered, Terran. A syndicate experiment on Earth colony's void seed planted to unlock the rifts. The twist's echoes amplified. Jake wasn't just carrying a secret, he was the secret, a living weapon now turned against its creators. Elara boarded to extract him, their reunion charged with emotion. You're more than their tool, she insisted, pulling him close amid floating debris. Kale watched, his suspicion thawing. Perhaps, but control it, or it controls you. Awkwardness lingered in the debrief, Jake cracking jokes about his new party trick, while medics poked him again, Elara's hand in his a silent anchor. As they approached the core, intel in hand, weak points in defenses, void entity coordinates. The humor faded into grim resolve. A massive rift loomed on scans, pulsing with hunger, calling to Jake like a siren's song. In private quarters, drama intertwined with intimacy, Elara traced his scars, her touch tentative. Does it change us? She asked, vulnerability raw. Jake pulled her into a kiss, fierce and reassuring. Only makes me fight harder for this. But as they lay together, awkward doubts surfaced, his void side stirring dreams of darkness, making him pull away mid-embrace. Sorry, not sure if I'm safe. She laughed softly. Terran, you're the safest danger I've known. The humor bridged the gap, but the rift awaited, promising a confrontation that could end everything. Allies rallied, ships forming a armada, but syndicate countermeasures struck, cloaked minds detonating, forcing evasive chaos. Jake's void sense tingled, guiding them through. Left flank now. His commands saved lives, earning Kale's nod. Yet awkward moments persisted during a strategy holo meet. Jake's energy flared, shorting a console and singeing Kale's braid. Apologies, Your Highness. Heir today, gone tomorrow? The pun drew groans, but lightened the dread. As the core station materialized, a monolithic fortress orbiting the rift, drama crested. Boarding teams launched, Jake and Elara at the vanguard, humor their shield. If we die, at least the view's killer, he quipped, dodging fire. She smiled. With you? Worth it. Battles raged through corridors, void tendrils lashing like living nightmares. Jake confronted the core's guardian, amalgam of machine and entity that recognized him. Child of the void, join us. Drama intensified as it tempted him with power, visions of ruling galaxies. Elara's voice pulled him back. You're mine, not theirs. Together they channeled the artifact, Jake's void essence, the missing link to seal the rift. Explosions rocked the station, awkward escapes ensuing, Jake carrying a wounded Kale joking, "Don't say I never swept you off your feet." As they fled, the fortress imploded, the rift closing in a spectacular implosion. Victorious but battered, they regrouped, the drama resolving into hope. Yet Jake's void lingered, a humorous quirk now random shadows playing tricks. "Guess I'm your shadowy knight," he teased Elara. She laughed, the sound a promise of futures unwritten. The galaxy breathed again, but whispers remained what other secrets slept in the stars. The galaxy breathed again, but whispers remained what other secrets slept in the stars. For Jake and Elara, those whispers faded into the background hum of the Aurora's engines, as they charted a course back to Aurali's core worlds, the armada trailing behind like a constellation of loyal guardians. The rift's closure had sent shockwaves through the void, a cosmic sigh of relief that rippled across sectors, dismantling syndicate strongholds in cascading failures of their twisted tech. Reports flooded in from allied fleets, outposts falling, void tendrils retracting like defeated serpents, and scattered enemies surrendering in droves. Kale stood on the bridge, coordinating the mop-up with a newfound vigor, his once programmed eyes now clear and fierce. "We've turned the tide," he announced over the comms, his voice carrying the weight of redemption. But Jake, standing beside Elara at a viewport, knew the real victory lay not in battles won, but in the quiet spaces between them, the way her hand fit perfectly in his, a bridge between worlds that no prophecy could have scripted. As the ship slipped into hyperspace, the stars elongating into luminous threads, Elara turned to him, her violet eyes reflecting the infinite expanse outside. "It's over," she said softly, though a hint of wonder laced her words, as if she couldn't quite believe it. Her white hair, still tousled from the final skirmish, framed her face like a halo, and the repaired gown hugged her form with elegant persistence, its silver threads catching the light in subtle shimmers. Jake pulled her close, his exosuit finally shed for simpler attire, a worn Terran jacket that smelled of engine grease and adventure. "Not over," he corrected with a gentle smile, his thumb brushing her pointed ear, eliciting that familiar lavender flush. "Just beginning. No more running, no more voids trying to snack on my soul. We've got time now for us." They retreated to their quarters, a spacious chamber repurposed from officer lodgings, its walls adorned with holographic vistas of Zenthara's emerald landscapes. The door sealed with a soft hiss, shutting out the galaxy's demands, and in that privacy, the weight of their journey melted away. Elara's touch was tentative at first, her fingers tracing the faint scars where void energy had once flickered beneath his skin. "Does it still call to you?" she asked, her voice a whisper against his neck. Jake shook his head, pulling her onto the berth with him, their bodies aligning in a familiar, comforting rhythm. "Only echoes now. And they're drowned out by you." Their kiss was slow, unhurried, a celebration rather than a desperate claim. Her curves pressed against him, soft and inviting, her skin's luminescence brightening as emotion stirred within. He explored her with reverent hands, peeling away the gown to reveal the pale expanse that had first captivated him in stolen glances and journal scribbles. She gasped softly as his lips followed, trailing down her collarbone, savoring the unique texture of her glowing veins, which pulsed in time with her quickening breath. Elara's hands roamed in return, mapping the hard lines of his chest, the human warmth that grounded her amid the stars. "You've changed me," she murmured, her legs entwining with his, drawing him closer. The intimacy built gradually, a dance of discovery where differences became delights, her ethereal grace meeting his earthly strength in harmonious waves. Pleasure crested like a gentle tide, their sighs mingling in the dim light, bodies moving as one until release washed over them, leaving them tangled and content. In the afterglow, Jake held her, stroking her hair as she nestled against him. "No more awkward family interventions?" He teased lightly, recalling Kale's earlier glares. She laughed, a melodic sound that filled the room. "Kale will come around. He's already calling you brother in his reports," though, with a growl. Days blurred into weeks as they returned to Aurala's, the planet's twin suns welcoming them like old friends. The throne room, once a bastion of cold rituals, now buzzed with renewal. Elara ascended the steps not as a solitary ruler, but with Jake at her side, the artifact now purified and dormant, set into the throne as a symbol of unity. The council, humbled by the revelations, bowed in apology, their ancient texts rewritten to honor the true bond, not sacrifice, but partnership. Kale stood as her right hand, his survival a miracle that mended old wounds. "The void is sealed," Elara declared to her people in a broadcast that spanned the empire, her voice steady and radiant. And in its place, we forge alliances that transcend blood and stars. Humanity, our Terran kin, has shown us strength in vulnerability, love in chaos. Jake, uncomfortable in the formal attire they draped him in a blend of Terran leather and Zentharian silk, shifted awkwardly during the ceremony, whispering to Elara, "Do I have to wear this? Feels like I'm playing dress-up for space prom." She stifled a giggle, squeezing his hand. "Endure it, my love. For me." The crowd erupted in cheers as they exchanged vows, a hybrid ritual blending Earth's rings with Zentharian light binding, where ethereal threads wove around their wrists, glowing in harmony. It was a good ending to their saga, but Jake knew it was merely a chapter's close. Whispers of other voids, distant anomalies, hinted at adventures yet to come, but for now, peace reigned. In the quiet evenings that followed, they wandered Orali's crystalline gardens, hand in hand, under skies painted with auroras. Elara's belly would soon swell with the promise of new life, a child of two worlds, void-touched yet balanced, a beacon for the future. "Think it'll have your ears or my stubborn streak?" Jake joked one night, as they lay on a bed of soft moss, staring at the stars. She smiled, her head on his chest. "Both, and it'll conquer galaxies with charm alone." Their laughter echoed into the night, a testament to the improbable love that had saved empires. Years passed, and the whispers grew fainter, replaced by tales told across the stars of the Terran who tamed the void, the princess who chose heart over prophecy. Jake became a legend, not just for his battles, but for the quiet heroism of building bridges, teaching Zentharian youth about Earth's wild frontiers, while Elara introduced human ingenuity to her councils. Their child, a girl named Lyra, grew with elf-like ears and a mischievous grin, her void essence a gift that allowed her to sense dangers before they arose, turning potential threats into alliances. One fateful evening, as the twin suns dipped low, Jake and Elara stood on a balcony overlooking the thriving capital. "Regrets?" she asked, leaning into him. He shook his head, pulling her close. "None. You were the best detour my life ever took." Their kiss sealed the moment, a promise eternal. The galaxy, vast and mysterious, held its secrets close, but in their union, it found a spark of enduring light, a good ending, indeed, to a story written in the stars, where love conquered all, and humanity's fire illuminated the darkest voids. But even in peace, adventure called. A distant signal, faint and intriguing, pinged from uncharted space, a new anomaly, perhaps a gateway to wonders untold. Jake grinned at Elara. "Fancy a trip?" She nodded, eyes sparkling. "With you, always." And so, hand in hand, they stepped into the future, ready for whatever whispers awaited, their bond the unbreakable thread weaving through the cosmos. In the end, it wasn't the battles or the twists that defined them, but the simple, profound choice to face the unknown together, hearts entwined across the infinite expanse.